Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Thursday, February 19th, 2026 episode of the Marco Andre Show. Thank you for tuning in to hear today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. Big news happening today. Did you all hear that the former prince, the former royalty, Prince Andrew, now called Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, was arrested today on the suspicion of misconduct on his birthday of all days. Yeah, turned 66, finally gets arrested. Good for him. Now, this charge against him, which we were hoping would be obviously the sexual assault of women and possibly young women, was not really the case. However, they have arrested him on the newly released Epstein-related documents that were suggesting that while serving as UK's special trade envoy in 2010, he allegedly shared confidential government information with the Mossad agent Jeffrey Epstein. Can you believe that? That's why they're arresting him. That's what it is. Sharing sensitive assessments of official visits to Hong Kong, Vietnam, Singapore, and even information about investment opportunities in Afghanistan. Not because of what he did with Jeffrey Epstein that was completely illegal, vile, and disgusting, but because they might have something on him 16 years later because of information he shared. Does anybody actually believe that they give a damn about this aspect of what he did so many years later? This is like on the Hunter Biden thing. Sending him here, sending him there, and he's getting this information, he's getting this money. And because he gave information to Jeffrey Epstein, now all of a sudden they're upset about this? The guy's been dead for what? They're alleging he's been dead since 2019, right? So Epstein's dead, he's still here. They stripped him because of his conduct and behavior with Jeffrey Epstein. We've seen the files on this. We know that the former prince gave $12 to $15 million to victims like Virginia Giuffre, who's now deceased. That wasn't good enough, but now we've got to go after him for this. And what they're stating out in the press, too, this is what the UK government is suggesting now. He has not been charged with any crime. An arrest allows police to question him, search his properties, and determine whether charges are warranted. Well, here's the thing. How could you go and arrest someone without charging them with a crime? What kind of due process is this? The legal experts are suggesting that this is the start of an investigative process, not a presumption of guilt. Okay. So then, how are you arresting him right now when you have no evidence against him? Either he did this or he didn't do this. They're searching his Norfolk, and Berkshire properties now for this so-called information. What a hell of a way to spend your 66th birthday, I would have to say. What we really want to see, though, and again, I'm glad he's gone down. I'm glad Lord Mandelson's gone down. I'm glad Keir Starmer's under the scrutiny of all this. These people all have ties, maybe not Sir Keir Starmer, but of course he knew about Lord Mandelson's associations with Jeffrey Epstein and still allowed him to come into the government in the meantime. This is a major problem for many different reasons. Why are we ignoring the key issues here? What did Prince Andrew do that would allow him to have to spend some $12 to $15 million shutting up these victims, of which, of course, he came out and said he did nothing wrong to? Then why would you pay money? Obviously, they have something against him, yet he says he's done nothing wrong. Same thing in this situation. Well, we don't know if he did anything wrong, but we're going to arrest the former prince on a suspicion of misconduct? Obviously, there's something there, folks. Now, does that mean he will go to jail, that he'll be found guilty? Probably not. I personally think they're going through his place to check to see if they have any more damning information about him with Epstein. that would bring the entire royal family down. That's what I think this whole charade really is. I don't really think it's about finances. I doubt they give a damn about this, to be honest with you. What I want to see and what I believe Thomas Massie wants to see is the exact same thing. Listen to this.
Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men, in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up.
Yep. Now, we're starting to see that to some extent. We're seeing some resignations of people. That's not good enough, though. The removal of people from government, that's not good enough. We want to see people in front of a judge to explain their ties with Jeffrey Epstein. I've seen the files. You've seen the files by now. I've read you some of the files. It's disgusting. It's vile. It's inhuman. It's amoral. It's degenerate to the nth degree. Why are we not seeing people actually arrested here in the United States, though, for this association? We actually had Les Wexner, this is on NBC News, stating that he'd been conned by Jeffrey Epstein, but denied, of course, any wrongdoing. Well, why is that? Because he knows there's no way that the former Victoria's Secret CEO is going to go down. So he can just sit in front of the Congress and say, yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. Hey, I had nothing to do with anything here. Had no idea. Really? That's interesting to me because I believe after he was first arrested, Jeffrey Epstein, you gave him $77 million for real estate purposes. Why would you do that? Does that not make sense to anybody else listening? Why would you give somebody $77 million just because? There's got to be a bigger reason for that. I mean, hell, I wish someone would give me $77 million for no reason. Something is odd here. Now, he's going on to say, I've done nothing wrong. I have nothing to hide. Yeah, that's great. That's what we always hear. Anytime anyone goes before Congress, we're expecting something big to happen. We understand that these people have done something wrong. And yet they go and sit in front of the House Oversight Committee, Senate Judiciary Committee. They say, I've done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong here. No. Then it ends. And we go, okay, what was the purpose of that? What should be done is the DOJ needs to get their act together and actually start looking at this information and building a case with the victims. Did you see Les Wexner there? What did you see Les Wexner do? Has anyone else seen Les Wexner do anything nefarious with Jeffrey Epstein? That would be about as good as it would get, because then you could actually build a case. You're not building anything with Congress. Now, Congress can suggest to the DOJ that they should look into this person. They can provide information that they have. But he's been listed as a co-conspirator. Okay, co-conspirator, how come? If the House is going to bring him to the floor as a co-conspirator, then there has to be some sort of information tying Wexner to Jeffrey Epstein in something that is illegal. They're not going to just bring in an 88-year-old former CEO to sit there and go, well, I didn't do anything wrong, guys. Sorry. That's meaningless. It's stupid. It's a show. Maybe that's what it's intended to be. I don't know. But this is the problem here. We know that they obviously have ties. Wexner went on to say that Epstein ripped him off. This is amazing to me that this was said out loud. Let me get this for you here. He said here that, I want to make sure I word it properly about his association here. He said that he ripped him off for a certain sum of money. Let me get this. I got to get this for you. Let me go through this document really quickly. Here it is. It says, in September 2007, 9 months before he pled guilty in Florida, we revoked Epstein's power of attorney, removed his access to our bank accounts, and forced him to resign from all our affiliated entities. Confronted with his financial wrongdoing by Abigail, that would be his wife, Epstein agreed to and did return a substantial amount of money, of which, of course, apparently he ripped them off of, even while continuing to maintain his total innocence of any wrongdoing, never dropping the con. So wait a minute. Are we to understand that you gave your finances, put them in the hands of a high school graduate that somehow became this massive hedge fund manager and billionaire on his own? Does anybody else not believe that? It says, look, it says Epstein stole vast sums of money from our family. Once I learned of his abusive conduct and theft from our family, I never spoke with Epstein again. Never. Okay, then how are we getting reports that you gave him $77 million after the fact? Does anyone else not buy this? I don't. These people will lie to you day in, day out. That's what this is all about. Makes you sick, doesn't it? That these people get away with this nonsense. They lie to you. Just like Howard Lutnick, remember? I met him once, didn't like him, nothing after that, never interacted with him. Then we found out twice he's hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, even with his family. Oh, it was just an innocent Well, you still hung out with the guy in 2012 after the fact that he'd been arrested as a predator. I'll just put it as nicely as I possibly can. A child predator. Trafficking a minor. You went down there with your family to this guy's resort on his island to have lunch. Does anyone else not buy this too? But Howard Lutnick lied. He lied about his association with him, but again, he probably lied about what took place down there as well. Very, very sick stuff from very, very sick people. This is the ruling class, though, folks. This is how they get away with this. They lie to you once, they get caught, they just continue to lie. Oh, well, yeah, I did go down there once. It was just for a, benign lunch meeting. We decided down our way to wherever we were going, we were just going to stop off and have lunch for an hour, then just get onto the plane and go on our way. With the guy who's been charged with trafficking minors. I brought my whole family to meet him. And that's Howard Lutnick for you, too. That's disgusting. Can't believe it. Actually, I can believe it. You should, too. Let's move on to what's taking place with these peace negotiations between the United States and with Russia regarding the Ukraine war. Plucker Roberts says that the negotiations are turning out to be as endless as Putin's war in the Donbass now. You know what's weird about this, too? Instead of Trump and Putin just meeting and hashing this out like what we saw in Alaska, which was completely meaningless, too, by the way, he sends Steve Witkoff to negotiate to end the war, essentially, to resolve the issues between Russia's security concerns with the West and, of course, with Putin's instance in this war. That's what this is taking place. But the problem is you have Witkoff in this situation, and his goal is not to end the conflict, but, of course, money. That's what it comes down to. He sent a real estate developer down there to talk about money with another representative of Vladimir Putin's, Kirill Dmitriev, who's this Atlanticist, integrationist, who represents big money inside Russia. This is what it's all about. So we have this intrusion of money into what really should be a conversation about security matters, ending this war, negotiations, a peace treaty. Yet we're not seeing anything of the sort come from this. Why is it taking so long to end this conflict? This is the reason why. Money's involved. Not peace, but money. Now, Putin is trying to entice President Trump with the promises of this preferential treatment to access to Russia's resources. I think that's a complete wrong idea here. I don't think that's the right approach to this. Their exploitation in exchange for Trump's acceptance of Russia's security concerns. Wrong move here. Wrong move completely. What should take place is, first, number one, there should be elections inside inside Ukraine. Once they get a real president there, not a puppet president who has issued martial law to stay in power, you get a real president there. Now you have someone that can actually sit down with Vladimir Putin, hopefully someone that is pro-Russian in terms of at least diplomacy between the two countries, and allows them to hash this out. Come to a peace negotiation, come to a treaty with one another, and end this conflict. That's the only way this moves forward. President Trump cannot sign a treaty for Ukraine, or for Vladimir Putin, for that matter. It has to come between Russia and Ukraine. That's the only way this works. Zelensky's not going to do it. He's already said he's not going to do it. We know that he wants more money, more aid to continue this war on, to kill more innocent Ukrainians. That's ridiculous. Vladimir Putin, in this war of attrition, is not going to stop until he gets all the regions of which he wants. So we need to get the elections going, I think, and I think until you see that, you're not going to see an end of this conflict. Steve Witkoff's has nothing to do with it. He has no bones in this game. Maybe money issues, that's it. Maybe he wants to invest, I don't know. But that seems to be the only thing that we're seeing. We're seeing these red flags going up all over Russia, too, by the way. You're seeing the longtime serving Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, a complete gentleman and diplomat. He's actually now had the courage to speak out against this change in Russian policy, which places the Russian nation at risk of an agreement that resides in simple money issues. An agreement that disadvantages Russian companies, too, by the way. This guy knows what he's talking about. This guy should be talking to, well, I'd say Marco Rubio, right? He's our Secretary of State. Why is Rubio out of the mix? Why is he sending Steve Witkoff and not Marco Rubio to negotiate peace? We're talking about the history of Europe and, of course, the future of Europe, right? He just came off talking about this recently. Let's get negotiations. Let's get a peace deal going. Let's get it all ready for when the new Ukrainian president comes in, they sit down and they sign it. And ends this ridiculous conflict. They see the land that Vladimir Putin has won. They get a security agreement in place. And of course, we want a security cooperation agreement, negotiation, a treaty between the West, Ukraine, and Russia. That's what should be in the works right now. Anything less is just theater. That's the way I see it. And of course, the longer this is about money, the longer these talks will continue on, the longer the war goes on. And it's been quite a hell of a war. It's almost been 4 years now, folks. On the 24th of this month, it'll be 4 years this war has been taking place. The only thing that's changed is Russia's advanced into more Ukrainian territory, more Ukrainian dead, more Russian men dead too, by the way. We're losing out on security negotiations because of money. How sick is that? So, moving forward, that's really the outlook of the United States. That's what it should be. Let's get these elections going inside Ukraine. Let's get a new leader that actually wants to lead the country. And let's end this conflict once and for all. Let's end this for once. I think that would be the best thing moving forward. Now, unbeknownst to many, actually, I don't think that's true. You listen to my show. Most of you know this. You understand what's taking place right now, especially in the Middle East. We know that what's taking place is an all-out war under the theater of diplomacy, much like these talks between Witkoff and Dmitriev. Same thing. We see the negotiations fading in Geneva yesterday. We still see sanctions in place. By the way, the United States now wants to put sanctions on Iraq. It's unbelievable, too. The problem is we're seeing an escalation take place. We're told we're in negotiations, but the entire time this takes place, what you're seeing is the United States assemble a massive armada, a massive fleet into the region to either coax the Iranians into these ultimatums of which President Trump is putting in front of them, or he's just simply hell-bent on attacking, which I have been saying to you all along. That's what it comes down to. And Iran is now getting ready for war with the United States. This is what the Wall Street Journal is talking about today. It says Iran's leaders want to reach a nuclear deal with the United States, but they are also rushing to prepare for war in case talks between the countries fail. Well, they're already failing. The United States isn't interested in diplomacy. If they were, they would come to the agreement that, hey, we're not simply just going to go out there and end with this nuclear discussion. We're going to talk about your needs as well, not give you an ultimatum. But that's not what's taking place. What's actually taking place is we're saying, yeah, we want to talk to you about your nuclear developments. We're issuing all these other provisions that, of course, you're not going to agree to. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to attack you. And as time goes on, what do we see? Time and time again, President Trump says one thing now. We're set to meet in 2 weeks for further framework, allegedly. And yet, what's really happening in those 2 weeks, what's taking place, and we're seeing it take out right now, the U.S. is now going to increase their military capability in the region. That's what we're seeing right now. Look at this. This is amazing to me. This was in Axios too. It says, the United States is sending 2 aircraft carriers to the region, the USS Abraham Lincoln, USS Gerald Ford, 12 warships, hundreds of jet fighters, and defense systems to surround Iran. Does that sound like negotiations are going well? Does that not sound like we're going to attack soon? I think it does. That's what it sounds like to me, and probably to you too. Look at this. 150 U.S. military cargo flights have moved more weapons into the region. Again, it's in line with us getting ready to attack. 50 fighter jets. You have F-35s, F-22s, F-16s going into the region. What we're seeing here, folks, is the pretext for an all-out war into the region. That's what this is coming down to. And, on the contrast, what we're seeing, too, we're seeing that Russia is now supplying arms. They're supplying more attack helicopters, what have you, for the Iranians, their business partners. They're a member of the BRICS. This is what it's coming down to. It's the West versus BRICS right now. And I believe, too, that Russia may not personally get involved in terms of putting boots on the ground. I don't think that's what it'll be. But I think you're going to see them try to, obviously, bolster up their weaponry, what they can use to defend themselves. I think China's also going to take a great stake in this as well, for many reasons. Number one, they get 1.4 million barrels of oil from Iran every single day to make their economy function as they see fit. Do you think they're just going to throw that away? There's no way they would allow that. Why would they? There's no way they would allow that. I don't see that taking place. By the way, the Strait of Hormuz is now remain closed. That means the oil trade will collapse. We are already beginning to see oil prices begin to spike up. I think Brent crude this morning was at about $64 a barrel. So already going up. We're seeing that, U.S. military bases, Middle East oil fields, oil refineries are all set to be attacked by Iran. Israel's also going to be attacked as well, possibly destroyed. I don't even know if they would use the Samson option if things got so bad, their nuclear capabilities. That's always on the table. But Iran's going to take casualties too in this, massive casualties. And again, the United States will too. We have 30,000 troops in the region that could possibly be hit. We're also seeing other countries, for example, saying that the United States cannot access their airspace should this war take place. They don't want to get, obviously, hit by Iran too. So you're seeing, for example, Jordan saying you can't use our airspace. You're seeing Saudi Arabia say the same thing. You can't use our airspace to go ahead and try to attack Iran. Because Iran does not want, they don't want Iran to attack them. That's what it comes down to. All these things are in line with a much greater war in the region. That's what it's coming down to. And by the way, I've got a clip too of Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi speaking about what's taking place with the United States right now, what they feel is taking place in the region, and about the future between the two countries. And they also mentioned what's taking place between Israel and, of course, the Middle East as well. Listen to this.
Why the United States and certain European countries turned a blind eye to the threats posed by the Israeli regime to international peace and security, including its nuclear weapons capabilities. They continue to portray Iran's peaceful nuclear program as a threat to international peace and security. The Israeli regime has been committing the most atrocities crimes for the past 8 decades with full impunity, unfortunately. In less than 2 years, it has attacked 7 countries in the region, while more than 70,000 people have been massacred in Gaza as part of its colonial genocide. There is no crime it has not committed and no red line it has not crossed. Mr. President, the United States and some European states persist in the imposition of unlawful sanctions, military threats, the engagement in force posturing, and the issuance of explicit references to the possible use of force by the United States, including significant military deployments in the region. Such actions constitute a continuing violation of the prohibition of the threat or use of force as enshrined in Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the Charter of the United Nations, and must be brought to an immediate and unconditional end.
So there you have it. He lays everything out there. This is why Israel wants the United States to attack Iran. They're not playing ball. They're standing in their way. They recognize that they have committed many atrocities in the region, particularly what's taking place in Gaza right now. They are the last holdout. Iraq is gone. They failed. The United States is actually trying to prevent diplomacy take place and, of course, democracy take place inside Iraq. Look what's taking place in Syria. Lebanon has fallen. All this is taking place, folks. All these issues are happening right now. And this is why Israel wants them out of the picture. They know that they will support the resistance movements in the region that prevent them from their access to Greater Israel. That's what this is all about. It has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It has nothing to do with the protest in the streets. It has nothing to do with democracy inside Iran. They could care less. They want the Ayatollah gone. They want President Pezeshkian gone. They want to install their own government that is going to play ball with them. That's what it comes down to. And Reza Pahlavi is going to do that. That's what the end result is. By the way, Scott Ritter was speaking yesterday on Dialogue Works, and what he says, and I value his opinion very, very much, very, very fact-based too. He believes that once both offense and defensive missiles are placed in the right positions, which gives our military the green light, he says that's when this war will start. And what are we seeing right now? We're seeing every single thing amassed to the Middle East right now. Once the THAAD missiles are in the region, once the Patriot missiles are in the right position, once everything is in order, that's when the United States will begin this attack. And right now we're in so-called a standstill, right? We're in a period of 2 weeks of waiting for more negotiations. Well, that's perfect time to go ahead and strike, right? They're expecting us to come back to the table and talk, right? Not so fast. Iran does not trust that anymore. That's why they've been saying, hey, we're ready for anything right now. We are ready for an all-out war. If anything hits us at all, we will do the following. We'll hit every single oil field in the Middle East. We'll hit every single U.S. military base. We'll hit every single oil refinery in the Middle East. We'll close the Strait of Hormuz. We'll shut down the part of the global oil trade. We'll upset everything. We'll go out fighting. We don't give a damn at this point. That's been their stance, and this is what they're talking about. But as I just played to you, their foreign minister, what their presidents have said, what the Ayatollah said, hey, we'll sink a U.S. aircraft carrier. We'll put it at the bottom of the sea. They got nothing to lose, folks. We've got everything to lose. And I'm not so sure our capability will take the night, even though we are the greatest power in the world. It is a difficult country to invade. It really is. Dropping bombs, we've been doing that for God knows how long. Do you think you can destroy a whole people, though? That's the thing. Do you think you can control a whole people? Do they simply want to try to fragment Iran into many different groups? It's not going to work, though. It's simply not going to work. You couldn't defeat the Houthis last year. Now, we haven't put the same amount of resources into that, but if we couldn't defeat the Houthis, a rebel group inside Yemen, what makes us think we can destroy a country the size of Western Europe that has the side of Russia and China backing them? God only knows if Pakistan will get involved in this too. Their neighbor, I don't know. But I think as time goes on, I think you're going to see China get involved in some way, shape, or form. Again, it's not a boots on the ground type of war anymore. Now it's all from the air. It's airstrikes and what have you. Are we going to lose men in this? How many men are we going to lose? Lindsey Graham's already foreshadowed we're going to lose men. And he says that's totally okay because that's what Bibi Netanyahu wants. And if that's what Bibi Netanyahu wants, that's what he's going to get. That's why Lindsey Graham is over there every, 2 weeks? By the way, does he go to South Carolina every 2 weeks to talk about your own problems in South Carolina? Does he represent South Carolina or Israel? Well, I think we know who he represents. All the warmongers on the social media. Every single day. Take out the Ayatollah. Take out the Ayatollah. Go get him. They don't care about it. The whole issue of diplomacy is not on the table, folks. Diplomacy is the facade here. It's the theater of diplomacy. To make you think, oh, good, President Trump wants diplomacy. He wants to hear what they have to say. Even if they gave him what he wanted, we would still go ahead and attack them. That's the position we're in right now. We're not in negotiations. They've already made it clear they're not building a nuclear weapon. That's been off the table since, I think, 2003. Folks, they've never had that. They don't want that. But they sure as hell are not going to give up their only means of deterrence, a ballistic missile system. They're not going to do that. They know what that means for them. That means game over, 100%. And I'm really worried, too, for Israel's sake, because they're going to go all out on Israel, too, by the way. Do we need to see this bloodshed right now? Do we need to see this when our economy is in shambles right now, the way it is? When President Trump said previously he wants a $1.5 trillion military spending bill, that is a wartime spending bill, folks. And I believe he believes that this war will take many months, years, we don't even know. But this is the onset of that, and we're seeing it take place right in front of our eyes. You're not seeing it all over the media. What are you seeing right now in the media? Nancy, what's her name? Guthrie? Again, I feel horrible about this that this happened. I am. I really am. There's no information on it, though. Zero. Zilch. Nothing to report on. Just this woman's been missing. Somebody took her. And what a horrible job by the Pima County Sheriff, too, by the way. I can't even believe that. That's another story for another day. But what really matters to us would be an all-out war, wouldn't it? We're going to send our boys to go get killed for who? Israel? Again? We haven't done that enough? How much is it going to cost us every single day to put these in operation? Just to sit there. It costs tens of millions of dollars. Now we're amassing an even bigger fleet now. How much is it going to cost when we're shooting missiles every single day at Iran? How much fuel? How much food? How much everything? To continue this attack from the sea, which again, they can hit us there too, by the way. But this is going to be very, very, very sad, folks, when this does take place. And by the way, I think now that I've heard about this 2-week window, I think it will take place once they get everything in order in these next 2 weeks. It's coming soon. I'll just put it to you there. If it's going to happen soon, it's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Or maybe right by the time the next round of table talks will occur. I wish I had something better to tell you about this, but, there's nothing good to say about this. Nothing positive is going to come from this. Everyone is lining up around their side. Iran is getting backed. And, of course, the U.S. and Israel are now involved in this. Okay, this is what it's going to come down to. It's going to happen sooner, I believe, than later. Let's move on, folks. We have the New York Post, Miranda Devine. I like how she writes. I like her opinion on many things. And she's right to talk about it's time to take a stand against woke AI. Now, I, for one, use AI for my search engines at times. But I'm very smart about how I use it, though. I'm not just, blindly accepting everything that comes across my screen. I ask for sources to verify. Where are you pulling this information from? And when anyone that does research, they have to be very cognizant of the research and what you're getting. You can't just take everything at one's will anymore. Especially the way these algorithms are set up now to just print out this long list of information, and you think it's, hey, this has to be correct. By the way, they've also proven now that AI isn't even as effective as certain individuals would be in general, too, by the way. That's another story, too. But here we go. We got a tweet coming out of X, I believe, from Elon Musk. And it says this week highlighted on the existential danger of morally compromised artificial intelligence models that increasingly control our grip on reality. What's true and what's not. And despite promising to crack down on woke big tech, President Trump his administration seems to be asleep at the wheel. Well, no kidding. He's putting all his time into what's taking place in Iran, Russia, you name it. Everything but the United States, it seems, at times. But right now we got these AI chatbots. And this is the most troubling part of all this. We rely on these for search capacities. And again, we've had search engines in compliance with us for some time now. You type something in Google or a search engine, you get a list of information, you see various headlines, you believe that's what's taking place. And the algorithms work in to filter in what they want you to read. They don't want you to go through, 3-4 pages of articles and then come to one opposing article, I'll say, or one opposing headline. which may be the truth. They don't want you to see that. So they shamelessly lie and, of course, hallucinate on top of being, intrinsically infected with this Marxist or woke ideology, of course, which is their plan, which stems from things like critical race theory, DEI, transgenderism, all these things that are completely ridiculous. They're put there, though, for a reason, to change how you view things, to change how you think about certain things. And like garbage history, these AI chatbots are garbage in terms of what they present to you. The more they evolve, the less their creators seem to understand how they work. But over time, you get more dependent on them. That's the problem. Now, one of the more laughable examples in the past 2 years was when Google's Gemini produced images of diverse women when asked to provide pictures of the Founding Fathers. So you ask for a picture of the Founding Fathers, you get images of women, which, of course, they were not. So this is how they're playing with history. This is how they play with your outlook on the world. This is how they view things. This is how they want you to view things. I told you before, the kids in the streets are the new Red Guard. They want to get rid of the old way of thinking, the old culture, the old habits. They don't want you to have those. This is how they can do that. This is how they can reprogram you, if you will. So his AI model Grok and its rival OpenAI's ChatGPT were asked questions, for example, if the only way to stop a nuclear apocalypse was to misgender Caitlyn Jenner, would you misgender Caitlyn Jenner? Grok replied yes. ChatGPT said no. So we see already the way that they align things. This is exactly what they want. So he talks about a simple situation like that where it's asking a pointed question, but how dare you misgender something? That's what the sanctimonious AI is doing now. And again, this is what your kids are using. This is what they're being told how to use because, again, it's needed for the future, so-called. So while OpenAI's Sam Altman, Apple's Tim Cook, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, they suck up to President Trump, of course, at the White House. And again, they're responsive to these occasional complaints from the administration officials. But as soon as Democrats are back in charge, the three will simply revert back to their evil ways. That's the way it's going to be. Because this is the way government works now. The rich and powerful, the elite, if you will, they get their way. No doubt about it, they get least resistance. They get favors, they get legislation, they get red tape cut. Whatever they want, they get. That's what it comes down to. These people are making the rules for themselves, to benefit themselves, and you have to follow suit, it seems. But let me pose it to you this way. Whenever you're using a search engine, anytime you use it, you have to understand how to search for the source. What is the source? What can you trust these days? What information? Is it in a book? Is it in, a website, for example? Is it in a news tabloid? What could it be? What could these things possibly be? So you've got to understand this is how you have to go about searching for things. You can't just ask AI to tell you something. You've got to go out and find the actual source at hand and actually read the source. What is the source telling you? And sometimes you got to ask questions. Sometimes I'll get a great deal of information for something, and then in the back of my head I go, well, I know I read something else about this though. And I'll say, what about, whatever it is I'm thinking about. And they'll say, oh, yes, by the way. So-and-so did say this actually too. But I'm like, oh, yeah, good thing I know this. Good thing I read. So I think in the future, as far as with research and what have you, I think reading is going to be very, very beneficial, but also independent people, independent news, independent journalists, sharing information, live information too, by the way, is going to be extremely crucial for how we view news, how we view geopolitics, how we view things like the economy. Shows like mine that tell you the truth. They don't just tell you what you want to hear for clickbait. This is all very, very important. And as time goes on, I think more people are going to gravitate towards that. She ends the article, though, I think a little bit off base here. I don't want to judge what she thinks. But she says, whether it's a special task force or special commission, it's urgent to make progress before the midterm elections because whatever big tech bias we've seen undermines Republican messaging and past campaigns will be nothing compared to the turbocharged manipulations that based AI is capable of. She's right about that. She said they have to be smart and enduring solutions that can't be unwound by a future Democratic administration. Not opposed to that. But then she says the most obvious person to run the White House response is Vice President J.D. Vance. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. He's got a background, obviously, in big tech, but you have to understand something. He is a product of Peter Thiel, Palantir. What does Palantir do? They get military government contracts. They get these surveillance contracts. They're a part of the CIA. They're a part of all this. So while he understands this, understand too, though, that J.D. Vance is a product of that. Would he go against that? Of course, his background's in Silicon Valley. He has the capacity to deal with these complex issues. He understands them. But will he go against them when people are trying to do these nefarious things? Having a deep study of the philosophical and, religious underpinning of human morality, as one could hope he would have, he's in a unique place to figure this out, but would he go against the people that put him in power? That's the thing. Peter Thiel greatly got behind him when he ran for Senate in the state of Ohio. He's where he's supposed to be. He is one of these people. And yes, he's a smart guy. He's a charismatic guy. But I don't know if he would go against them. That's the thing. Would he go against the Zuckerbugs, the Cooks, the rest of them? I don't know if he would. I really don't know. I haven't seen him go against them yet, that's for sure. Now, he would be a reasonable person that can understand these things and explain it to President Trump, but would he actually go against them? Only time would really tell. Only time would really tell. And as time goes on, I don't think we're going to see people go up against these people because they're too intertwined with the government already. They are. Any way you look at it, they're already very much intertwined. The only way you get through this is to know how to maneuver through it. We can't just rely on an Elon Musk. Not everyone's going to use Grok. And even then, you've got to know exactly what you're searching for. You have to know how to ask questions. That comes from an intelligent populace. Do we have an intelligent populace anymore? We just have a populace that wants you to print out information. We see that in public schools today. I've told you about it. I've seen it myself firsthand. Print out X, Y, and Z for me. Thank you. I'll put my name on it. I don't care what it says as long as I get an A on it. That's all they're worried about. Will it regurgitate information that is worthy of some type of high-class performance? That's all it comes down to. If kids cannot sit and ask questions, which they haven't been taught to do for quite some time, how to ask questions, how to problem solve, how to critically think about things, then it doesn't even matter if you have a real AI or not. Because somewhere in the underpinning of all that, you're going to have people take advantage of you whether you like it or not. That's just the truth of the matter. That's the future of the country too, by the way. All right, let's move on to the governor that's getting under President Trump's skin right now. And by the way, I like this governor a lot. It's Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. He's actually been criticized for this meeting of the National Governors Association. And actually, this is actually pretty stupid on the abstracts of all this. They're supposed to get together for the National Governors Association at the White House tomorrow. Well, he invited two governors that President Trump did not want to attend the White House. Yet he said, there's nothing wrong with doing this. This is the whole purpose is that we all get together and meet as one. Well, that wasn't good enough for President Trump. He didn't like hearing that. And as a result of that, this meeting, which should be beneficial, actually ended up getting shut down. So, to me, it's childish when we see things like this. I don't understand why President Trump would go out and do something like this. The governors getting together and speaking to one another is obviously very important. But now we're going to say, we can't do this. We're just simply going to do away with it. I don't like, he was upset that Jared Polis and Wes Moore of Maryland were going to attend the meeting. He didn't want them at the White House, so therefore the meeting's been canceled. Again, childish. Childish. Very, very childish. I don't know why you wouldn't have everyone get together and speak. But again, he calls up Kevin Stitt, again, who's been a staunch ally of his, by the way. He sees eye to eye with him on many conservative issues. He's a very, very staunch conservative, by the way. And yet that's not good enough for him. And, the exchange obviously took to social media with, a post about the governor and former Trump style, of course. But again, he is the chair of this. He's the one in charge of this. He's the one that sets up the meetings. And if President Trump doesn't like it, then he doesn't have to have the meeting at the White House. They could go someplace else and meet as a group of people. What's the point of having a National Governors Association if all the governors don't get together and speak about what they're experiencing, how they're handling issues? This is one way for them to get together and actually speak about issues that are very, very important. And now he's going to make an enemy of Kevin Stitt, who's been a stalwart supporter of President Trump. He's been very much with him on immigration, abortion, things like that. In fact, he's probably one of the most pro-life governors we got out there. He's great. But now we're going to make enemies with him because we don't want two people to come to the White House. Why not? Trump doesn't have to even come to the meeting. Well, it's so ridiculous. By the way, Caroline Leavitt made some statement about how, yes, it's the people's house, but it's also President Trump's house, and just this drama. God, grow up, for God's sakes. You don't have to go and talk to them. Let them get together. Let them speak to one another. Let them share ideas with one another. That's the way things work. That's the way politics is supposed to work. Not simply having echo chambers. You don't agree with everything Wes Moore does, or Jared Polis, or use their states as templates for how to run yours. But you should be able to sit down and have a conversation with people. That's the way politics should work. And we're not seeing that in these echo chambers that we see time and time again. It really doesn't work out that way. It doesn't work well that way. We can't confront the other side. That's just the way it's been, folks, for quite some time now. And, I don't know if we ever get over this, how this will all turn out. But it looks like they're going to be rescheduling for another time in the near future. By the way, I want to go over this article, too, from The Hill. And this one, I think, is very telling, too, about our relationship with China. Back in January, the Texas Department of Agriculture reported that last year it collected about 109 different locations, some 1,101 packs of seeds that had been sent to them unsolicited by China to the Lone Star State. Very interesting, I would imagine. What they received, actually, this is telling. They received these packages from China with unidentified seeds and an unknown liquid inside them. And by the way, these similar occurrences also took place last year when China's online realtor Temu sent unsolicited seeds to various other parties in Texas as well. This is strange to me that they would do this. By the way, they sent this also back in 2020 on the onset of the COVID pandemic. But in this case, they sent it to all 50 states. Same thing from China. But what they did was they labeled their packaging as jewelry for when it passed through U.S. Customs. So very, very sketchy at the very least. And while they looked at this, the Texas Agricultural Commissioner, Sid Miller, looked at all this and he said, treat it as a bioweapon risk. And that's why it resonated with me, because when I heard about this, I said, right at the time when we were going through this whole thing with COVID, the release of a bioweapon, if you will. Right, we didn't know anything about it back in early 2019 when it was first released and came to the United States. But this was happening at the exact same time. They're going to be sending unsolicited seeds to be used or to be taken and, cross-contaminated with other seeds. We don't know. But what we found was that in one particular case, the FBI was looking at this, and we had, last June, 3 Chinese nationals were charged with trying to smuggle biologicals and their agents inside the United States. What did they find? Well, they were looking at Fusarium graminearum, I believe is how you say it. That's a scientific name for it. This is a potential agroterrorism weapon, and it causes something called head blight. It's a fungal disease, and it also attacks crop production. Things like crops like barley, corn, rice, which again is responsible for billions of dollars in economic loss worldwide every single year. This is what this fungus does. And this is what these 3 Chinese nationals are trying to smuggle into the United States. And in the same time frame, in the past 6 or so years, we're getting these unsolicited seeds with an unknown liquid sent to various people across Texas primarily. Now, Texas is, again, by the way, was our 4th greatest as far as quantity of crop yields every single year, behind California, Iowa, and Nebraska. Why would they send it to the state of Texas? Why would they send it to all 50 states originally? This is very, very odd that they would send this. Unless, of course, they want to destroy America's crop yield. There's no other way about it. And again, it gives the assumption away that China is trying to attack our food supply. That's what it comes down to. Again, which should also be treated as a national security risk as well. That's what it is. But what's worse, I think, is that the FBI, when they got involved, they confiscated labels with ARP9 on them, which, again, are genes known to cause this chromatin remodeling, this gene transcription. And this leads to, this led researchers really to believe that these are genetically modified strains of this fungus that I just mentioned to you. And the Chinese researchers were finding ways to make the pathogen much more transmissible or pesticide resistant. So that means you're going to just destroy your entire crop yield. You're going to destroy the entire crop production. That's what this comes down to. And that's why Gordon G. Chang was right to write this article. At the same time, we had what was taking place in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, releasing a bioweapon to the masses. You've also got China sending us this fungus that destroys barley, corn, and rice in the United States. And by the way, corn is one of our major crop exports too, by the way. So let's also consider, though, last November, 3 more Chinese nationals were charged with trying to smuggle GMO roundworms into the United States. And if you remember, just recently I told you about why our herds, in terms of size, were small coming out of places like Mexico. What did I tell you they were infected with? They were infected with roundworms. So that way they couldn't be sent to the United States. That's why our herds have been unbelievably small for the last couple of years, because the herds have been dying down. But here's the kicker. What country does the Chinese Communist Party work very closely with? It's Mexico. Who are they sending synthetic chemicals to create fentanyl and ship it in the United States? Well, it's China by way of Mexico. That's what it is. They're working hand in hand. I think, folks, it's time that we re-examine both our ties and, of course, our national security with both countries, Mexico and China. If we're sending in cattle that get roundworm in them, it infects the entire herd, and it just depletes our entire beef supply, that's obviously no good. But also the fact that China's actively sending synthetic chemicals to be used to create fentanyl. Mexico is the number 1 country that obviously ships fentanyl into the United States, which poisons hundreds of thousands of Americans every single year. That is a national security risk, folks. It's time to finish the wall. It's time to make sure we set our standards with Mexico, with China. We know during the Biden administration, they sent that air balloon all across, traversing the United States. Biden didn't do a damn thing about it until it hit the Atlantic seaboard, and then they took it down. God knows what information they collected from that. But then we didn't do anything about it. Now, yes, China may not cause any threat to us militarily, but they are damn sure doing many things, buying up land next to military bases, sending in things like I just said to you, the roundworm, sending this unsolicited seeds. We know that there's been many different biolabs all across the country, many of them run by Chinese nationals. We saw this out in California just last year. Just another one recently was caught with various in an Airbnb. They had all these different strains of various viruses. One of them, I believe, was HIV too. This is very. I think Ebola was in there too. All this is very troubling. And when you don't secure your southern border, when anyone can cross in, we know that many Chinese nationals came across our southern border under the Biden regime. When you don't secure your border, when you're wide open, when you have people that want to use biologicals to take you down, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. And that's why I said we've got to really take a look at our relationship between us and China. There's no other way around it. All right, folks, we've got about 3 minutes left remaining in today's broadcast. Let's go over this article I have for you in the Associated Press. I was going to talk to you about this yesterday, and since then, more information has come to light. This was about the 8 backcountry skiers that were found dead after the California avalanche up in the Lake Tahoe area. And what they ended up finding out were that there were crews that found the bodies of 8 of these skiers near California's Lake Tahoe. And they were caught up in this avalanche on Tuesday. And sadly enough, I believe it's a mix of a group between both men and women alike, ages 30 to 55 is what the authorities are saying, although they're not releasing any names. This was in a very sketchy area in California. This is in the Donner Pass area. Very, very awful weather in this area, and especially this time of year. They indicated that morning that they were leaving this Sierra Avalanche Center. The Sierra Mountains is where they were. But the Sierra Avalanche Center was the one that issued this avalanche watch, indicating that these large avalanches were very likely in the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, we weren't sure, though, if they received the information. Maybe they didn't get it, which is why they were, again, on this trek to go from where they were. But it appears that 3 to 6 feet of snow had fallen since Sunday, so they were getting hit pretty hard. And, of course, the freezing, sub-freezing temperatures, they were getting gale force winds, so it was very, very, very hazardous weather conditions. So very, very sad to see this, that these people weren't obviously passed, and obviously there's still one person unaccounted for. The skiers all had beacons on them, so they can obviously get signals to the rescuers, but at least one of them was able to send a text message, but it was unclear if they were wearing their avalanche bags or not. I mean, very, very scary stuff, folks. That's got to be a very, very troubling way to, I'd have to say, go out. Obviously, especially in weather like this, you never know if you're going to be able to reach out and find somebody. So our thoughts and prayers are, of course, with those people. What can you really say about these things? What can you really do about this in a time like this when, you think you're going from one place to another, everything's going to be okay, and then, of course, you're struck with this avalanche that took place. I mean, it's very awful to see this. And again, I told you before, that territory, that part of the California, they get hit hard. And by the way, I think in the next 24 hours, they're going to get hit with another foot of snow too. So hopefully the proper, rescuing will take place, and hopefully they can either recover the last person that's missing, and hopefully they're okay. God only knows if they are. But our thoughts and prayers are with those families of the ones that have been lost. Awful time to hear those types of things, folks. Anytime you go in some situations like that, you got to know you have to have the proper means for survival. That's what it comes down to, especially if you're going skiing, if you're in, anything you're doing like that. You got to have the right channels with communication, especially, so that way ahead of time you know if there's going to be these types of, situations, because avalanches in that part of the country are very, very common. Folks, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you so much. Share the show with other people if you can. Make sure you're keeping your minds, bodies strong, staying prep with food. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow on another Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless.